guys, my name is Shayda Campbell and this is an 11th apartment video. In today's tutorial, I want to talk about watercolor paints and how you can use them to enhance your hand lettering projects. I've just recently posted a tutorial showing you how to stretch and prepare watercolor paper, and then last week we talked a little bit about watercolor pencil crayons. This is going to be a shorter video and I'm going to focus mainly on fonts and on one fun technique that you can use to create cool illustrations and hand lettered cards. It's really simple and whimsical and I think you're really going to like this font, so let's just get started. So I'm starting today with some cut pieces of watercolor paper. It's 140-pound paper. I like to buy a large pad and then cut pieces as I need them. I think it's economical, but it's also just that I get the size of paper I want for the project that I'm doing. So today I'm using a 4x6 card. I've also got my craft quality watercolor paints and some small synthetic brushes. You can get those at the dollar store or at any art store. And then of course I always have 2 glasses of clean water. One I'll use for warm or light colors and one for dark or cool colors. And then I've got paper towel there as well just for dabbing my brushes. And we're going to be doing 2 projects today. And the first one, you're using watercolors just to sort of make these splashes of color on the page. It's really fun, it's experimental, and you won't be lettering right away with the watercolor. You'll be using your artist pen for that. So in that way, it's great for anyone who's new to this medium. And then the second thing I'm going to show you is how to use your watercolor paints to create fonts. And we're not even going to do a specific font. I just want to show you how incredible and versatile this medium can be. I'm sure you've seen these type of watercolor fonts on Instagram, and you're going to be able to do them. It's not hard. So we'll start out with our little colorful piece here, and it's good to think about your color palette. As I always say, that'll elevate your project. I'm going to go with spring colors, with something a little bit cool and pastel, perfect for spring. To start out, you just want to get lots of water on your discs so that the paint is flowing. And keep the paint on the page quite light. Use lots of water. You don't want a heavy watercolor paint. That's not the point. You want it nice and light. You want to see the page through the color. And you can just sort of push the paints around, let them move on their own. It's also good to have a little scrap paper underneath your page in case you want these blotches to go off of the page, which I think looks pretty cool. And you can sort of like drop the water onto the page, do droplets, and just the way they dry is incredible. Watercolor paper is pretty neat, and you wouldn't want to do this on like a cardstock or a computer paper. Watercolor paper is highly textured and it's very dense, and so the way that the paints and the water seep into the paper, that's part of the art. And that's why dropping these blotches on is such a great project for a beginner. It really shows you what this medium can do. And just have fun and play with it a little bit. Put a few smaller drops. And that's really all there is to it. And once you're done, just let that dry for a good hour or even more. You don't want to use your artist marker on a wet page. While it's drying, you can think about the quote you want to use, and once your project is dry, you can sketch it on with a little mechanical pencil. I'm doing enjoy every moment and just centering it right in the middle of the project. Of course, if you're not confident and you think you're going to be constantly erasing, that can harm your project. So what you can do is just do it on graph paper first and then transfer it with graphite transfer paper. Dark side down, go over it in pencil. If you need more info about that, you can check out my holiday greeting card video in which I go over that in more detail. And then once you've sketched your quote or you've transferred it with the transfer paper, use a Staedtler Triplus fine liner or a similar artist pen in black and just go over your initial lettering. Super simple. I've mentioned before, don't use a Sharpie fine point or an ultra fine point on watercolor paper. Even though I love Sharpies, they do bleed into watercolor paper. So you're better off with a specific artist pen like the Staedtler. And if you want more info on these fonts, you can check out some of my other videos. but just get creative and do any font you like. Anything will look great on this cute little project. Okay, on to the lettering. So using watercolors to do your lettering is like using a fork to eat your food. It's so effective. It's pretty, it's whimsical, and it's not hard to do. So I've written "Fry Yay" on my little piece of watercolor card here, and I'm just going to take a small brush. I've got sort of a favorite brush that I use for everything, and I'm going to get the black disc of paint really nice and wet, so I have lots of my medium. And then what I do is I just follow my pencil sketch, but I just sort of, as I always say, I don't overwork it, and I just sort of go with it. I try to be open to however the paint sort of sits on the page and whatever I get. It's supposed to look easy and casual and like you just sort of threw it together. And I think you'll see that when that paint goes on the page, the look is really nice and you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to work for it. Not too hard anyway. For anyone out there who hasn't tried watercolors for their hand lettering projects, I think you're really going to be happy with the effect, and you'll be doing Instagram-ready lettering projects in no time. Okay, and to finish up, I'm just going to show you one last example of using your black watercolors to do this sort of lettering. Of course, you can use any color. I'm just sort of doing a faux calligraphy font here, and you can see it just the watercolor just goes on so easily. You get those light spots and dark spots, and that's what gives it that iconic, very sort of easy, whimsical look. I hope you'll give watercolors a try, guys. Thanks for watching today, guys. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and if you're looking for more content in between my weekly YouTube videos, please check out my blog. There's lots of good stuff over there. It's the 11th apartment.blogspot.ca. I'll see you there.